Yeah, hi all. It's a pleasure to be here, to stand. Nice to meet you all, and hope today I will share some knowledge, experience with React and Rails, how to work, how to integrate, and actually who is working with React now? Who can? Okay, oh, nice, nice. And who is already integrated React with Rails? That's great. Okay. So, yeah, my name is Anton. I'm engineer at Couchsurfing. I work there, and we actually already also integrated React into Rails, and we are moving towards like full integration of that stuff. I also constant participant of different IT challenges. It's like UA Web Challenge or IT Challenge, which just passed in Krakow, Poland. And yeah, I'm just a nice guy and hope you will not change your mind after this presentation. You can visit my Twitter, but I do not recommend to do that because I just need to fill that gap, and that's what I have to do. So what we will discuss. Actually, there are 3 ways of integrations. Maybe you can find more than 3, but it's basically about use GEM or not to use GEM. And when you have this question, how to do that, how to integrate some kind of JavaScript framework, it's not a big deal if it will be Angular or Vue or another JS framework or React. So, but most of the team already integrated that or in the process or thinking about it. And when you have a project jQuery and Rails 4, and it's not bad, but some people can ask you and you answer them that you just work with jQuery and thinking about integration. Yeah, they probably will think that your project is pretty legacy. And for example, at Couchsurfing, that application is built from 1999, so it's 17 years old. And yeah, sometimes it's a big problem. So all the teams think about update somehow in some way their front-end UI and to combine that with back-end. And the first problem is like to push this proposal to the team, right? When you are working at the team, you have managers, team leads, or CEOs, and sometimes you just have to fight with them because you need to push or like provide best arguments why you need that integration, why you need update to React or Angular or anything else. And sometimes it's problem number 1. So another problem, the second one, is provide efficient way, as I already mentioned. And the third is just do it, right? So why React? Yeah, on stateofjs.com, if you know that website, they state that you cannot go wrong with React, especially it was a statement in 2016, and I think that it's actually true for 2017 as well. So my personal opinion, and I think the React community also think in that way, it's a pretty lightweight, and it has a rich ecosystem and simplicity and organization. And it's a pretty low level to get the basics of React. So there are 3 ways. There is official GEM from Facebook. It's React Rails. It's not a bad solution. It's the easiest one. And it provides a quick possible quick way for possible integration, but it doesn't provide like stuff like ES6 classes, modules. It doesn't provide proper configuration of NPM modules, so you cannot easily integrate package.json into your project. If you use that gem, it doesn't provide that. And there is another gem also, React on Rails. It has everything built in. It has like a bundle of stuff. It's everything included there, like server-side rendering, webpack, and yes, syntax, Babel, whatever you need to for modern JavaScript structure setup, I would say. And yeah, third way is a own custom solution. And I think with this way, you can be more flexible with that. And you don't need install another gem because you already have 100 of them in the gem file. So I actually don't like gems. And I think it's a better solution when you have a custom setup and you can add or delete whatever you want. So the first way is pretty easy, and you would find it on the web in any docs or guide. It's pretty easy to do that. So, but I already said that it doesn't provide advanced configuration. So, and that another gem, like I wouldn't say, right, that it's not a good solution, but first of all, it's also a gem, and it provides more than you need, as I already said. So, and sometimes when you have an existing legacy application, it can be really overkill when you already have some configuration and gems and bundle of any other stuff, and you integrate another big package of things. It's not good, I think. So it's like a pollution of project. Yeah, I would say that it's a good solution for projects when you build something from scratch. So, but third way, it just starts from like create client folder, which will be put in a root folder of Rails application, and at some point in the future, it can be moved easily to separate GitHub repository, and it gives also another advantage when you have two separate applications, like front-end and back-end application. And it's how we separate concerns today, right? When you want to have front-end application separately and back-end separately, and they communicate through API, right? So, yeah, these three steps, like create client folder, introduce package.json, and set up webpack, it's, I think, the most important things. So the final look will be like this. It's a client folder with node modules with package.json inside. You can decide on your own when you want to, where you want to put package.json, in the root of Rails application or in the client. But as I already said, it would be better to put probably here in the client to have it in a separate repository in the future. And yeah, you will also have, if you want to, some configuration for Babel and ES-lint for linting, for JS linting, and SRC for the core stuff. Server is used for server-side rendering. I will not cover that in detail in this presentation, but if you want, we can discuss that in detail after that. So, and SRC looks like this: components, core, actions if you will use Redux and some other advanced stuff. Yeah, so what we will need: Node.js and NPM, some kind of legacy application, a desire to suffer. I meant that sometimes when you integrate new technologies in application, you start suffering because it's not so easy to do in legacy code, and sometimes you have overwhelmed code base, and it's really very difficult. But actually, it's willing to progress, right? We need to replace with this desire to update, to progress. And from that suffering, what I meant, our progress should come. So, and how does a package JSON look like? It's actually a list of dependencies. It's not more than that. Express also is used for server-side rendering. Axios, or you can use jQuery for Ajax requests. And yeah, it's basically React and React DOM to have React. In dev dependencies, we have another list of NPM modules, and it's basically Babel, like Babel configuration presets. It's ESLinting configuration. It's webpack, and that's it. And what I would like to mention is when you deploy your application on Heroku or on any other kind of CI, you probably need to put all these dependencies except webpack into dependencies, because sometimes you want to have webpack automatically build that for you with all stuff and with converted syntax from ES6 to ES5 through Babel. And then that bundle, that generated JavaScript file, will be included through the usual asset pipeline in the Rails, and it will be like ready to use, ready for use. And you will have some kind of scripts which you will run through NPM. It's build scripts and watch. Watch is using basically for dev. You will have to have dev and production webpack configuration, and that's it. And one more script can be implemented for server-side rendering, like running Node.js server for accepting requests, for returning HTML, like HTML as a string for server-side rendering, for rendering without JavaScript. Like all the JavaScript files will be proceed with Node.js. So, and webpack config is pretty straightforward. The most important thing is like entry point. It's a client app.js, and another is output, so where we put our generated bundle.js. And actually, it's easy as is. It's located inside of Rails JavaScript default folder, and from there we included like in usual asset pipeline, as I already mentioned. And that's how we require our client bundle in our application. And as you already understood, all the stuff which is related to React and JS, like React.js and components, will be happening in client folder. And Rails will just consume this client bundle generated file. And this is our entry file. It's like main entry point where you just define a global method which will be used for rendering your React components through Rails. And that global method will be used inside of Rails just to render particular components through the DOM element. So that method will be getting ID is in the DOM, like any ID, how you name it, and then component name, but component name will be particular component name, the name of your component, and then props, it's initial properties, initial data which will be used and rendered on the first load of application. And that props will be passing from Rails, like you will easily put your Rails data like in JSON or just in some kind of data structure, and it will be rendered through React. And that's our component, and it's a very simple one. Just for example, like it gets props, and in props we will expect to get answer on the props object, and this file is put in components folder, and yeah, it's like some kind of hello world. And this file is Rails helper, like usual common helper, and it's easy to create it as we usually create Rails helpers. And these both methods do simple things, like script, it's just inline script for listening for DOM content loaded when page is loaded, and then use that global method which is defined in client app.js, which is the entry point, and that global method will be rendering the React component which you will specify. And the client, dev client, this method will be rendering it as like simple JavaScript. And probably someone will think that it's a bit ugly that we use inline scripts, but it's not so bad, because in React community it's a common practice that there is a global component, a general one, like the main, which renders the old child of that component. So you can have only one inline script and it will be perfect. But another advantage of this inline script is like you can use and call this method in any ERB file, in ERB templates, wherever you want. So if you want to use React as a start point, like when you have ERB files, ERB templates, and you would like to render something, just some blocks on the page through React, so it will be easy to do with this way, like with this method. And actually, this is ERB file where we render it, and that's how we call that client method. And get answer, it's just a simple method on application helper. Just for example, how we can access data from Rails to, like how we can pass the data from Rails to React. And yeah, you just pass object with the property answer. I forgot to mention that it will be automatically, like initially converted to JSON, and I think it's a good practice to have it in JSON from the start. And yeah, that's actually the most like the finish point of this custom integration. And as you can see, it's pretty easy to do that. And if someone thinks there is a better solution, I would like to discuss that. And I think who is going to push some solution on your projects on work, on your job, I think it doesn't matter actually which JavaScript framework you will use. It can be integrated with Angular, it can be integrated with Vue.js, as I already mentioned, and I think when you have Webpack, ES6, and like the entire JavaScript ecosystem separately, like a client application, it's the best way how we can manage our dev process. And as we already know, it will never be perfect, of course, and I think it's the best start, like when you just do it, when you just started doing this. And of course, we are on our team, on my team, things that, like, looking forward to the shiny day when everything will be up to date and we will have less games, like less than 50 games in our game file. But I think developers, as you might know, it will never happen. Because always there is a continuous development, and you always pushed by management when you need to push features, develop more stuff, and other new things. So sometimes it's a good solution to provide and like bring something fresh to your project. So what is the conclusion? Separate front-end application, client. Yeah, it's ecosystem, as already said, and yeah, it's probably like more modular than using gem, and it's a custom approach. It's pretty flexible. It's I think will be easier to update or get rid of some stuff or add something else, like server-side rendering, or like just update React or introduce Redux. Because, for example, with official gem Rails React, it will not be easy to use Redux or like Flux architecture with React. But when you have custom stuff, when you have custom setup, you can easily do that. And it's pretty modular. You also can decide how to build your project, your client JS on your own. And when you would like to do that, it will be enjoyable to work. So where to go from here? I think the most advanced finish point is when you have everything separated, when you don't have ERB templates, when you have just React, or in Angular you have just like your ng components, and you will not have something which is rendered not through API, and you will use API. And when it will be only the way how your front-end application and back-end application will be communicating through, like, if it's the only way, API, it will be great. So, and then you will probably use JWT, JSON Web Token, for authentication. And it's also another, like, struggling how to implement that correctly. And when you have like two ways of rendering stuff in the browser, not only through API, but also like rendering from the backend, not through React. Also, it will be interesting to look at server-side rendering, and yeah, you should just go and try to do that. I hope it will be like a motivation or maybe some fresh thoughts for your future thinking about your project on the team. And yeah, drop me a line or contact me after this talk. And thank you for your listening. And yeah, just ping me and we can discuss. Thank you.